Good evening and welcome to another edition of Down to the Wire. I'm your host, derbyologist, and joining me again as co-host, capping with Candace here. Candace, this week it's Super Saturday, and we're going to take the 5 stakes races from Belmont and then add in the Grade 1 Awesome again from Santa Anita. And this year it starts out, they have carded the Beldame as the first of the 5 stakes races on Saturday from Belmont Park.
They have, and this is a short field, just 6 horses. I'm glad for our preview sake that we get it out of the way first because I think it's probably the most boring of the bunch, but I'm going with Wedding Toast here. There isn't a lot to say. She's won her last 2 in a row. You know, they were a while back now. She's coming off a fairly long break, but she tends to run extremely well fresh. Not a lot of speed in here. Maybe she'll be tracked by Carolina, but I don't think that Carolina is anywhere near good enough, particularly coming off that race of hers last time out behind Embellish the Lace. I think she was pretty disappointing there, to be honest. So I'm going Wedding Toast here, and I'm sure she's going to be an extremely short price.
Yes, Wedding Toast is going to be a short price. Now, they admitted that she had a little bit of foot issues, so that's why she was taken off the work tab for a while. And they've been pointing for this race for quite a while since that. Now, the original plan was maybe to go to the Spinster. You know, her last 2 races were very impressive. You know, one horse who I think can maybe improve a little bit just because they gave her a little bit of time off was House Rules. And maybe she can get a little bit closer trip to the pace this time. I think she maybe can complete the exacta.
Yeah, and that's possible. She's, been in the mix with Wedding Toast a few times, not super close to her, but has hit the board in some races that she's ran in before, and she'll at least be a better price, so that might be one to kind of link them up to get some sort of a price out of this race if you plan on betting it.
Well, it will be interesting because Wedding Toast definitely is probably one of the top 2 or 3 fillies in the country. If she wins this, I would assume if Beholder goes to the Classic, she's going to be one of the top 3 favorites in the distaff. So we're both going with Wedding Toast in that one. The only thing is I think if she were to lose, I think it's probably House Rules, and I just don't think, I kind of agree with you. I think Carolina facing older horses and not sure really where she sits with this group because there's other speed horses, and she hasn't really proven to me what she really is. She's not really a speed horse. She's not really a presser. She had a couple of nice races, but, some of those were a matter of circumstance. Maybe if she goes to the lead, she could take them a little bit longer than people think as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's starting to become more than a coincidence that Carolina's best races have been kind of messy races. You remember the one that she won on the Belmont Stakes undercard where she flew home, but half the field was taken out in that race, and she got the DQ put up over I'm a Chatterbox, which I think was fair. I think it was warranted, but I need to see her do some of this herself and just a straightforward regular race, nothing weird going on, like no, not a big collision halfway through the race. I just need her to show up and to win, and she just hasn't done that yet.
Yeah, I do think she maybe run a little bit better if she's near the lead. We'll have to see if they change her running style, especially with Wedding Toast. I think they want to try to rate her these days, so sometimes Carolina may get a little bit brave if she gets on the front end. The Gallant Bloom is kind of an interesting race. Older fillies, La Verdad, she missed the last race she was going to run in, and she's got a pretty nice win streak coming into this race.
Yeah, she was meant to run maybe about a month or so ago now. They had scratched her from that race, and I thought that was really notable because it was a race that they had been planning to run her in for a long time, and it seemed for quite some time that race was an ultimate goal for her. So for her to have been scratched out on the day, it's kind of the morning of, I think something legitimately must have been wrong. So it's never a good sign. She does come in here having won 4 races in a row. 6.5 is where it starts to get a little bit iffy for her. She can do it. She's done it many times, but she's definitely better at 6. The further you get, just a little bit tougher it gets for her. The positive is that she's lone speed here, which is usually the case in her races, and she's going to kind of take them as far as she can, but I am concerned that for a horse it's going to be an extremely short price that she has some sort of a setback. So I'm going to go with Room for Me here. I think Room for Me gets first run on the rest of these in this spot. She maybe is a little bit better at 7, but 6.5 is fine. She's run second to La Verdad before and taken her pretty close. So I think should La Verdad, not run up to par, not run up to her norm, which considering the circumstances, I think is very possible. I like it room for me to be the one who, will get first run and could win this race. And I expect a pretty decent price on her, maybe about 4 or 5 to 1. I think, La Verdad obviously is going to take a lot of money. Dame Dorothy seems to take money pretty much every single time that she runs. And even a horse like Willet it's got off very short her last several races as well. So I'm going room for me with the mild upset.
What's interesting about this race is this is a pretty solid group of winners. A lot of these horses have pretty impressive lifetime win records, and now they're facing each other. And amazingly, a lot of these horses have these win records, and they never faced each other at Belmont. Dame Dorothy is 2 for 2 at Belmont. La Verdad is 6 for 7 at Belmont. Room for Me is 2 for 4 at Belmont. And the outside horse, Willet, is 3 wins, 3 seconds, 2/3 at Belmont, but yet these horses really haven't faced each other.
Yeah, I mean, you see a little bit of them showing up in each other's running lines, but not a lot. And maybe that's because you have this variety. You have, a horse like Dame Dorothy. We've seen her running routes for the most part. It's only the last couple months that they've cut her now back to 7 furlongs. So she was going a lot further than these. And, La Verdad, I think they really try to keep her to 6. Some of the others, they try to keep them at 7. So the 6.5 is kind of, brings us a little bit of a hodgepodge of horses together.
Dame Dorothy's a pretty solid horse, 7 for 10. I've always liked her. I'm going to go with the outside horse. I like Willet. He's kind of given La Verdad a couple of battles in the past. The one thing about La Verdad, not only the scratch, it came out in the NYRA report that there was some drug overages on La Verdad, and I was just wondering if maybe that had to do with the scratch, and they were trying to clear up that paperwork. It still really hasn't been solved, but that's always a concern. So I just think Willet will be a fair price in this race because, as you mentioned, Dame Dorothy seems to get bet a lot. Normally I would be all over a horse like Dame Dorothy on the cutback, but really both her wins this year, she was solid, but I wouldn't consider them flashy wins. And then she just didn't run a step in that last race, and really there was no excuse in that race. I mean, I like Unbridled Forever, and Kiss to Remember is a good horse, but for some reason she just wasn't involved at all. Now maybe she just wasn't her day. I do notice they switched jockeys this time, but sometimes when older fillies and mares kind of go south, they don't come back. So that's why I'm kind of tossing her in the spot.
I think that some of her runs from earlier this year we thought were better than what they actually turned out to be too. Her second at Santa Anita, going over 1.1 miles, considering how fast they went and how long she dueled, looked really nice. But then Warren Pineda kind of fell off the wagon in a big way pretty soon after that. She beat Judy the Beauty in the Humana Distaff, but I don't think we've seen Judy the Beauty come back since then. She beat Street Story as a lone speed, had everything absolutely her own way in the Bed of Roses. And then, like you say, came back now in the Ballerina last time and did nothing. And, I know the track was playing a little bit funky that day, but there's no excuse. I couldn't have her in this spot.
Will be interesting to see how she does because she's one that it looks like they're trying to make her a sprinter to kind of close out her career. So if she did run in the Breeders' Cup, it probably would be in the filly and mare sprint. Now the Pilgrim is for the 2-year-old boys on the turf, and if you had to write down a list of top turf sires, if you wrote down 5 or 6 of them, a few of them would be in this race here. There's some nice turf breeding, and a few of these horses have ran on the turf, but a couple of others are stretching out, so it should be an interesting race.
It should be interesting. Maybe I'll start with the horse on the inside. Reyes Zabari comes in here having broke his maiden at Ascot. I'd be a little bit concerned. This is a large step up in distance. I know these European imports tend to go further out here, but on a young horse, I think it might be a little bit of a quick jump. He was an absolute upset winner in that race, so it was a little bit random. And I think I'm kind of concerned when you have a horse who comes out, races one time, wins, their breaks are made in an Ascot in June, and then you sell them. It also makes me think like, is he not that good? Like if he was any good, surely you would have kept him around. The breeding is fine. Exceed and excels a sprinting sire, but he has the Delicali mare underneath, which should inject some stamina. But I am a little bit worried this is a little bit too much too soon for Raise the Bar. Um, I would prefer to go with some others because I do tend to think that the Europeans as a whole tend to get overplayed out here, so you kind of have to separate who's the good ones from the others. For me, the horse that I'm kind of leaning towards here is Isotherm, the lawn row, who stretched out to this distance last time out and broke his maiden by a neck over Life Imitates Art. I really like that run. Uh, I was impressed. I think this is the right distance for a horse with this lawn row and more than ready mare breeding. Life Imitates Art took a lot of money that day, and I think was very well meant. But for Ice for starting to get that win, even especially considering how Chad Brown horses were going in Saratoga, I think was very impressive. In this race, I don't see a lot of world beaters. This isn't a typical year, I don't think, where you had like a Bobby's Kitten or one was going to be extremely tough. I think this is a pretty wide open race, and I look for Isotherm to kind of take advantage. I actually wonder if Life Imitates Art had broken his maiden and was in this race, I wonder if they would be your 1-2 favorites, to be honest.
Yeah, it's an interesting race. I agree with you. The Euro on the inside is interesting, although it's had 4 workouts in America, and maybe this is just a case of Chad Brown, he wins on the turf, and maybe they wanted to point to the Breeders' Cup juvenile turf for some reason, and it also has got Lasix. Maybe it bled in that race, and then they just had to sell it. So, I mean, it was a 13-horse field, and it was at Ascot. So unless the horse literally just has 3 legs, I assume it's going to run in the top 5. I'm just not sure it's necessarily going to win. I mean, its class alone should be able to, So I'm not necessarily it's a lot of negative signs, but just because it won over there doesn't mean it's a guaranteed winner. I just think maybe there's a few other reasons why it could be over here. And First L, maybe it's just a bleeder, and they know that already, and they just sent it to America type connections. I ended up going with the polka dots here in this race. Live Oak Plantation has bought some nice horses the last few years. Haven't really had any luck yet on the track. They've had a few okay horses, but they've been buying a lot of horses between 300 and 600,000, trying to really hit that sweet spot. I was impressed with that Monmouth victory. On paper, it's got a very low speed figure, 59, and I think a lot of people are just going to toss it out. But visually, I thought it was pretty impressive, and I like the fact that they ran at Saratoga in a sprint in its first race. So it's got 2 races under its belt, $350,000. I like the Stormy Atlantic on the mare side, and Louis Saez, I think, will ride it aggressively. So I think this horse will definitely get lost in the tote, 15 to 18 to 1, and I think Brass Compass maybe has a small shot here to pick up some of the pieces.
That's definitely possible. I think at a bigger price, a horse who I would be looking at in this race too is Forever in Love by Scat Daddy. Comes in here for Linda Rice. Broke its maiden in a 2-year-old New York bred restricted race, but did so by 8 1/4 lengths and was extremely visually impressive in doing so. Made kind of a really nice middle move, and I like young horses who, when the second they're asked, they just go, and that's pretty much what this horse did. There was no messing around. Gets blinkers on here. I mean, we know how turf races can be over in New York. A lot of times, they're kind of really devoid of speed, even if it looks like it on paper. So this just looks like, it just looks to me like a horse that they're getting really aggressive. They're trying to win in this race. When you see the equipment change and all that, you see the big step up in class, it makes me think they think pretty highly of this horse and that they're coming here to win. They're not coming here to mess around. The one last note I wanted to make on the Euro 2, because this is the time of year, we start to see all the comparisons on the turf with Breeders' Cup coming up. And the one thing I will say is that our juveniles tend to hang really well with theirs. I mean, we're used to their horses beating ours, but it's typically the older horses. Our juveniles, typically compared to theirs, are a lot more precocious, and at this time of the year can hang really tough. I think people are still used to those few years there in the Breeders' Cup when Lasix wasn't allowed for the juveniles, so all of our juveniles were Lasix off, which you have to think is a negative change. And then we're getting trounced by the Europeans. But generally speaking, under fair conditions, our juveniles tend to be able to hang really well. We just got some more precocious, speedy types than they do often.
We move along to the Vosburgh Handicap, and this is a sprint race for the older sprinting crew, and there's going to be a heavy favorite in here in Rockfall.
There is. I mean, it's a little bit of a disappointing race. We're missing a few of those kind of stalwarts of this New York sprinting division. And obviously Private Zone isn't here, not that he needs it. He, won so well last time out. But even the Big Beast, it was said that Breeders' Cup is off the map for him, so he's not here. Clearly Now isn't here. I mean, he's kind of fallen by the wayside this year, and just maybe, I don't know if he's not working or if they just felt like he wasn't competitive in a spot like this anymore. I agree that Rockfall is going to be the heavy favorite. It's fair. He's run extremely well this year. His win over Big Beast last time out in the Vanderbilt, I thought was a very game win. He really kind of dug his nose down in what was a tough race. I think you could easily make a case that, any of the top 3 or 4 could win the sprint. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people are missing, because we tend to kind of ignore our sprinters a bit, but this Breeders' Cup sprint division is phenomenally strong. I mean, you're thinking Rockfall, Favorite Tail, Saludos Amigos, Stock Walking Dude, Private Zone, Masochistic, Appealing Tail. I mean, it's a very, very strong division, and he's one who has done nothing wrong. He hasn't lost all year. I don't think he's a sure thing in this race by any means, though. For me, the horse who I would be looking to is Wildcat Red. I thought he ran better than it looks last time out in the Swargo. He might be better at 7 than 6, but I think he really has kind of found his form again when it's come back to sprinting. Did have that win over Stock Walking Dude at Monmouth. Thought that was a nice one. And I think he's going to be a fair price. I mean, it seems like this year he just kind of has been plugging away, doing his thing. He's not blowing anyone away, but he's making these moves, small moves in races. And this race, I think has come up for as soft as you could imagine for this sort of a grade 1 race. And so I think Wildcat Red has a chance. The one who I'd be super against is Palace. I've never been a big fan of this horse, and I just think he's really fallen off the map, and I think he clearly has had some issues. So for a horse who never goes off at anything short, Palace would be the one who I'm against.
Yeah, I really think Rockfall has captured the speed figure maker's attention, and just the name. I mean, he's going to be a 2 to 5 type shot, and I agree with you. And every once in a while, when it just looks too good, you kind of have to step back a second and go, "What a minute here, what's going on?" And my spidey sense up big time. That last race was a huge race, and that's where sometimes, I think people get involved in the emotion of the day and the emotion of the race, and they cash a ticket and they start putting, just really going gaga about this horse. And the last race was awesome, and it really was nice. And he came off the pace, and he went 3 wide, and he ran down Big Beast. But now all of a sudden he's going to be back on the lead. He's the hunted. All these other guys are going to be coming at him this time. He purposely passed kind of that last race. I'm going with Saludos Amigos, and I like Wildcat Red as well. I just think Rockfall is going to be forced to the lead here.
Yes.
And I'm not so sure that's where if he goes to the lead, then all of a sudden they've got him into the Breeders' Cup off a win going wire to wire, and I don't think they want that. So then it's like, do they start getting cute? And I agree with you, Palace has had issues. I think they pretty much admitted this is just totally a prep for the Breeders' Cup. But Wildcat Red had a nice race 2 races ago, and he's one of those horses that does his best running, just power sprinting in a field like this. And then I like Saludos Amigos. The last 2 races, the speed, there's been nobody to soften up Private Zone. And I just think he can run a little bit better than he's shown the last couple of races. And then you think last year he kind of ran a nice race right before the Breeders' Cup. So I think Saludos Amigos and Wildcat Red, and I can't really explain it. I think on paper it's a 2 to 5 race for Rockfall, but something just tells me this is going to be kind of a gut-wrenching race for him. And I don't think they want to be on the lead, and I think that's kind of where they're going to be stuck being.
This is one of these races too where you kind of have to weigh up. I mean, you should do this every race, but I think this is a race where it's going to be clear that the odds aren't going to match each horse's chance of winning. And Wildcat Red and even Los Amigos, like you said, they were both behind Private Zone, who was on the lone lead last time out. I think Wildcat Red in particular, he was up on the rail. The rail was pretty dead that day as well. So I thought he ran fine, and he's going to be, I don't know, what do you think? Oh, I don't know how many times more than Rockfall, but 5, 6, 7 to 1, I would guess. I would think he's going to be third favorite in here at the lowest. So certainly is closer to Rockfall than that those odds would indicate. The other thing I think we haven't really talked about it, and it's around that time to take it into consideration, is that these horses are running here and they're going Breeders' Cup next. And some of these horses who they put in a big effort last time, I mean, don't be fooled. The trainers look at the sheets. They know these figures. I don't think a lot of, you don't want everyone to say horses are meant to win. Of course, if they can win, they're going to win. But going into the Breeders' Cup, if it's a goal for the horse, if they're nominated, if they're going, and they ran huge last time, I mean, would you want a horse that's going in there off of 2 enormous efforts? That's probably a sign of regression. The last thing you want is your horse to regress in the Breeders' Cup. So you might want a little bit of a soft run, protect him a little bit in a race like this before the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, I think sometimes the numbers, the problem is there's so many numbers out there now, you can't, I think it was, I mean, and I'm saying that sarcastically, is that when there was one set of numbers, everybody kind of agreed that, oh, okay, he's got too high of a number. But now I see 4 different numbers, and I think the trainers are confusing themselves. And I also think there's a small difference with the really good horses.
Yes.
And Rockfall has a chance to be I mean,
yes.
I must admit, he's been as good as
good enough to handle it, absolutely, yeah.
Since Space Town, and see, to me, there's a difference between Rockfall and, I don't know, Palace or something like that. No, I wouldn't want to see Palace as a 6-year-old with 2 fast speed figures going into the Breeders' Cup. But Rockfall's lightly raced, and he's dominated so easily. I mean, it is what it is. At this point, if he is better than these horses, it doesn't matter what his number is. I'm more concerned about his running style, because they purposely laid off the pace the last time, and that's what they wanted to teach him. And now they may be stuck on the lead, and I don't think they want to be there. So to me, it's not the number; it's the style that they don't want to be in this time. So, and sometimes it happens with speed horses in longer distance races too. All of a sudden, they finally get a horse to rate, and then all of a sudden, the horse is stuck as the lone speed in the prep, and they don't want that. So it'll be interesting. Like you say, I think this is one of those races where do you bet a lot of money against a 2 to 5 shot? But I think Rockfall will be all of 2 to 5, and I think some people get involved like, oh, let's take them all. Well, I don't think it's a take them all race. I think there's only 2 horses, 1 or 2 horses that can beat them. Yeah. So just take 1 or 2 horses if you're going to try to beat them.
Yeah, no, this is one of those where, I mean, it's a short field, so you probably don't want to take them all. This is the type of race that I don't like Rockfall, so I'd play some sort of a pick 3 and use 1 or 2 against him. Wildcat Red, Los Amigos. But you have to take a stand somewhere.
The Turf Classic is the older division. It's a grade 1, and we're familiar with these horses, but as I've mentioned before, it just seems odd in the last couple of years we haven't developed any good older turf horses, especially because every spring, all everybody talks about is all these turf breds on the dirt, and for some reason it's just the 5, 6, and 7-year-olds keep on winning these races.
This race is a mess. It's a short field. It's these same horses. I don't think any of them is that good. Twilight Eclipse, I don't even know why he's here. I mean, he hasn't worked in like a month, right? So I was really confused even when he entered. I don't know if they'll run him off of a month of no works, but I mean, he's honest if he's okay. I would be extremely concerned that he hasn't been working. Big Blue Kitten ran well last time. I think the Ellington Million was his goal. I think he was meant to win that race. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he regressed ever so slightly off that effort. I certainly think he was best that day, and it was unfortunate for him to not win there. I wanted to say Shining Copper's lone speed, and he wins this race, but he's going to get bet off of these ridiculous numbers from last time, off of those ridiculous sectionals that we know were not accurate over the ground last time. So, I mean, I guess I'm going to go with Shining Copper, but he's going to be some sort of a stupid short price because the sectionals they were giving off for the Arlington Million were ridiculously off. I mean, they had him going these like just insane time on the front end that there's no way was anywhere near accurate. So I'm sure he's going to be super overbet, but he's low on speed here, and I don't love anyone else in this race.
Well, every once in a while, one of the, sometimes the logic of illogic is kind of one of the way I play the race. And you know those maidens that are like 0 for 9, and all the savvy handicappers say, oh no, don't touch this horse because he's 0 for 9 and he's a proven loser.
And then they win 4 to 5.
And they're 4 to 5, but well, I mean, even sometimes they go off at 2 to 1 or 5 to 2. They're never going to be a price.
No.
Every once in a while, they'll win by like 4 lengths, and then you just go like they were. It doesn't matter if they lost 9 races. If that was your first day out at the track, you bet him and he won, and you don't care that he got second 7 straight times.
Yeah.
And this happened the other day with Battle Red. I mean, he'd lost. All the quote-unquote great handicappers said, oh, he's got 7 lifetime seconds. And all of a sudden he pays, $13 as a horse with all those seconds and facing a bunch of maidens that can't win. And long story short, I love Twilight Eclipse in here. I just think he's going to win this race. I think he's a single. And for no other reason than he's going to do his race. He's going to run his race. I don't think the Breeders' Cup is the goal because they know that they probably won't win that. So why not go balls out here? It's a grade 1 and they can win a lot of money. Like, I just think for everything that everybody's going to overthink it, he may just win the race at 3 to 1 by a couple lengths.
I mean, it's possible. I guess I'm extremely concerned he hasn't been working. That doesn't bother you?
It doesn't bother me with a 7-year-old. It just doesn't. If it was a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old, it would, but it really doesn't in this case.
I mean, I guess the only other thing that I would be worried about with him in particular is it seems like every year he gets off to like a fast start every year, and then we kind of forget about him at the end. Like, do you think it's at all possible that he's over the top?
Could be. I do like the fact that they're switching jockeys, and it's not because I think a jockey
bad rides, that's for sure.
is better than another jockey. But every once in a while, I just like it when an older horse gets a new jockey. Why not?
Yeah, just to wake him up.
He's 1 for 6 this year. The worst he's going to come out of the race is 1 for 7. I mean, yet what if Rosario clicks with him? Because if you notice, Rosario's never ridden him. Like, they have nothing to lose here.
No, they don't. I mean, I guess I would say it's a little bit, it would be a little bit disheartening maybe, though, that his jockey hopped off for the horse who just beat them last time. Maybe that's a little bit disheartening.
Well, I'm not so sure that the jockey, maybe the jockey, like I say, I don't think it matters. Like, do you really think Red Rifle, I'm not saying Red Rifle can't win.
No, I wouldn't be, like, terrified of Red Rifle. No,
I'm not terrified of Red Rifle.
No, so, I mean, that's the thing at this race is any of them could, here's the thing. This is a field of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 horses. Legitimately, any of them could win, and any of them could finish last.
Yeah. And I also truly believe it's one of those times where after the race, everybody's going to say, well, that was an overlay. Because I really do. I think somebody's just going to win it kind of easily, or it's going to look real easy. Mm-hmm. And after, like I say, and there's nothing wrong with that. To me, like, pick a horse, like whether it's Big Blue Kitten or Slumber or Red Rifle, or, I think you can make the case for any one of these, and I'll take, what I don't want to do is take anything less than 3 to 1 on any horse. So I'm saying if Twilight Eclipse is 7 to 2, that's who I'm taking.
Well, and I think you'll get that, because, you would think Big Blue Kitten for sure is going to be shorter, and Red Rifle is going to be shorter. So kind of by virtue of the odds board, you would guess you're going to get 7 to 2 or better, surely.
And I also think this is one of the few times where I don't think any of these horses, probably 4 of these horses will be running in the Breeders' Cup turf. Mm-hmm. but they're not, you know what I mean? Like, none of these horses are superstars. Trust me, they'll take the $300,000 in the grade 1. Like,
Oh yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh yeah, and especially because I mean you're already hearing the rumbles of horses who are coming over, horses like the Grey Gatsby and stuff. That's just better than these. I mean, Grey Gatsby hasn't done anything all year, and he would win this race by about 4. It's just not close. So yeah, you have to focus on this sort of a race, not worry about the rest. And I mean, even the Peterman now they're saying Breeders' Cup, either the turf or the mile, and I sure hope it's the turf because the mile makes no sense. So if he goes turf. I mean, he already beat all these, right? So.
Well, I still think Pizza Man should just run in both. I mean, he should have ran in both on Arlington.
He should have ran in both on Arlington Monday. He would have won both.
He would have won both. He won the St. Ledger, and now he won the Million. He could have won both.
After
and
all
now
of
for
this,
the Breeders' Cup.
After all of this marketing, why hasn't like Domino's or somebody sponsor the pizza? It's written. It's ready for you. He could walk out with like his little blanket with like pepperonis on it or something. It'd be perfect.
Yeah, I really don't understand. Yeah, if American Pharoah can get sponsors and Mucho Macho Man was sponsored by 3M, I don't know how a Chicago pizza
Yeah, he runs
place.
in Chicago of all places.
So yeah, but it is interesting. I do think this is one of those races where everybody's going to do the old, they're going to do what you just said. Well, any one of these 7 can win. I better take 5 of them. And
yeah.
To me, I think you just pick 2 of them. And
yeah, I think for me it's just 1. I mean, this is a race. My feeling here is that Shining Copper's going to go off and run. That's all he does. That's all he knows how to do. He's not as fast as people think he is, but he's plenty fast. And I just think he's going to catch these guys off guard. They're going to, I mean, we've seen how these jockeys are in these races in New York. We've seen how the jockeys are in these horses earlier this year. I haven't seen any of these ridden aggressively this year at all.
Well, I do hope Shining Copper goes wire to wire, and then Andy Serling's head will just explode.
That's
116 fraction. I want to see 116 for 6, 144 for a mile, and then I want Andy Serling's head to just explode on TV.
And then we'll have about 5 DRF guys that'll be like, oh my goodness, this says everything about all the American turf horses that a pacemaker just won the race, even if he's not making the pace for anyone. Like they've showed they have 0 problem with him beating a Big Blue Kitten in here or a Slumber. So he's hardly a pacemaker. He's in it for himself, and he always has been.
Well, all the jokes aside, see, races like this, though, are the races that, to me, are the fun races, because you can actually hit $50 or $60 doubles. You can hit okay pick threes because there is no 4 to 5 favorites. So I'm not saying it's easy to handicap, but it does make for, you know, variety in some of these older. I just wish there was a few newcomers to the scene, because if we're sitting here next year at this time, you know, handicapping Twilight Eclipse in the Turf Classic, boy, that's going to make for a long summer again. So
yeah, where is everybody? Well, legitimately, where is everybody? I mean, I guess Mr. Speaker won the other day, but he's still in allowance races, and that's probably the best prospect we have. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not, you know, Big Blue Clinton I think may retire, but Slumber and Twilight Eclipse and these other, Red Rifle will probably all be back. So I don't know, it's just interesting. And I think it's an interesting race, but I am pretty high on Twilight Eclipse, because I do think he had that rough trip 2 back. I think the last race he just didn't run. New jockey switch. Maybe they'll run him closer to the pace. Maybe they won't. Maybe he'll win. Maybe he won't. But I think he'll be 4 to 1, and I think he's the type of horse that if he wins, that, you know, a nice $10
you
payoff.
have to think surely Red Rifle will be overbet off finishing second to Flinch your last time out.
Yep. Yeah. And I kind of think
he's good, but I mean, Twilight Eclipse and Red Rifle, they're kind of the same.
So yeah, I don't think anybody's any better or worse than, you know, than the others. So I think they're pretty even. Should be a fun race to watch. Pace will definitely be a factor. And after the race, yeah, the fractions may be a little slow, but it is what it is at this point. That's going to do it for the 5 races at Belmont. And of the 5, I'm most confident in Twilight Eclipse. Who's your most confident pick of those 5?
Oh my gosh, you're end up making me like boring and saying Wedding Toast.
All right, then now let's go to
Let's
go to Santa Anita, and we're going to take a look at the Awesome again, just because it's a grade 1, only a $300,000 purse, and there's a couple of horses absent from the entries that are going to make this race interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we would have thought Norman Invasion, they switched him out to a barn out in, the Mandela barn out in California. He was meant to run here, he's not here. Catch a Fly, you would think was going to run here. He's not here, so I wonder if that means they've decided he's off to Japan for the dirt. The formerly known as Japan Cup Dirt. Kind of a bad race, but sort of all these races in California have been. Once Share Belief and California Chrome, and we lost both of them to injury for the season. There wasn't that much left. This race, I think, is deceptive because if you look at it on paper, surely Bayern is lone speed. He breaks from the outside. He only has one way to go. That's the front. There's nobody here who really should press him at all like there was last time out. He obviously has lost a step. I don't know. I don't know if he's good enough to beat these, even if he gets everything his own way. To be honest, like I want to say, I think it would be great for racing and for the older division if he could win this race. I'm just not convinced that he is good enough to win it. Global View, I don't think is good enough. He won that one race on dirt, but it was not nearly this level. Opportunity, I think. He gets perpetually over, but I wouldn't be surprised if Opportunity is the favorite in this race. He always takes tons of money. I think he's disappointed on numerous occasions, and he's shown himself to be extremely pace dependent, and he's been on a pace that he's not going to get here. Hard Aces will be 15 lengths back of the half mile. I mean, I guess I'm going to just go with Sammy Mandeville. He's run a couple okay races this year. Nothing spectacular, nothing super flashy. But he just kind of does his own thing, and he's just kind of a little bit of a grinder type, and that might be what it takes in here. It's not going to take a superstar performance to win this race.
Well, I think it's down to the two horses, as you mentioned. I mean, I really think it actually would be good for racing if Baron could actually show any sign of a pulse.
Yes.
Win this race, all of a sudden,
great.
then you've got Beholder and Honor Code and a Pharaoh and the defending champion coming back, and there really would be some extra excitement there. But man, the way he backpedaled on the turn the last time, I just don't think he has anything.
No.
Now he is the absolute lone speed this time.
Yes.
I mean, there is no Pioneer of the Nile, Midnight Storm horse even, and we questioned his ability in the last.
Yeah.
Like Point Piper is a Lone Star Park $32,000 allowance horse. He is not going to press or Baron.
No.
But at this point, based on what we know from Baron this year, I can't take him. So then to me, it just becomes Opportunity, and I know it's just like Frosted last week. Like, he is the class of the field. I'm going with Opportunity just because I can't take Baron. But I don't care what about pace or anything else. Opportunity is just like Frosted. He's just better than the rest of these horses.
I guess I just don't trust anybody, so this is a race that, well, for one, we don't have any odds. So I'm going to have to see how the total board shakes out for Sammy Mandeville. I would definitely want double digits, no doubt about that. But if I could, for me, this is a race that I just can't even bet any sort of a short price because they all have serious questions about them. Sammy Mandeville earlier in the year was good enough. He was second behind Catch a Flight at the Precisionist. That was the race where I thought Catch a Flight got an absolutely phenomenal ride by Flavian Pratt there. Sammy Mandeville was second. He was fine. Last time out, he lost at Emerald Downs, but I mean, the horse who beat him, Striker PhD, he's about as unbeatable as they come as far as, local horses on their circuits go. Thought Sammy ran really well there, and it was a nice prep coming into this race. He's not a star. He's not terrible. O'Neill horses have been going really well, and I just think it's going to be a price. I could not bet any horse in this race that is any sort of a short price because they all have said, like, I doubt Bayern as much as I doubt Opportunity, as much as I doubt Point Piper.
The only other thing is Imperative may have needed that last race. He had been off since March, so there's a possibility he's a little better than the form shows in that last race.
He is, but I question. He reminds me complete opposite running styles, but he's similar to me to Moreno in that I think both of them really were bull ring specialists and nobody would say it. Like I think Imperative clearly loves, the Charlesdowns of the world, and he runs way better there. And some horses just take to tracks like that. When Moreno ran, I thought it was the same thing. And then, they'd leave and go to Santa Anita, and people are like, "What happened? They lost all their form." Like, no, they just love those bull ring tracks, and that's not what he's running on here.
Yeah, the bull rings, definitely play to a different type of horse sometimes. And sometimes horses can run on both. It's just sometimes horses can run better on both, just like synthetic.
It just seems like he runs significantly better to me on those bull rings. I mean, this isn't great. He's not going to have to run out of his skin to get fourth here. That's definitely.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think he's better than Point Piper. No
yes.
Yes. So, yes. I mean, yeah. So that's why my point is that no, he's not a world beater, but he's probably better than that last race shows. So he's one of those ones that could maybe float up fairly high. Yeah. And if Opportunity or Baron don't win, then maybe he's the type that could win. I can't take hard aces at all. I can't take Point Piper. I can't take Smooth Roller. Baron, I assume Baron will be even money just because everybody's just going to give him one more shot as the lone speed. But I mean, that on the turn the last time was just ugly. But he did get pressured the last time. The fractions were 109.3. I mean, if he can somehow run a 111, like if he doesn't win off of 111, But I think kind of he does win because I think there would actually be a little excitement. I think people would.
It would be great. It would be the best story that could come out of this race is if Bayern won.
Well, not only wins by like 3 lengths.
Oh yeah, commanding victory.
Yep, a dramatic victory. Baffert will talk him up for a month. But it's always fun to have the defending champ in any race.
And I think the next best story probably would be something like Global View. People have talked about Glen Eagles coming out here for the Classic. They're bred very similarly, both Galileo out of Stormcat mares. I mean, I don't think it's the switch to dirt that has helped him. I just think he kind of got some class relief in that race. My biggest concern for him is the distance. He's shown himself to be a miler and only a miler. 9 furlongs, I think, is too far.
Well, that'll be the final of the stakes races at Santa Anita. Of course, they've also got the Zenyatta Stakes, the Rodeo Drive, and then they have the two-year-old races, stakes races. An early look at, I mean, probably everybody's most excited to see Songbird in the Chandelier. And, then in the front runner stakes, Nyquist is undefeated. So if those two win, I think those will probably be your favorites in the Breeders' Cup juvenile races, no matter who wins the Champagne and the Frisette next weekend.
Yeah, and I think, of those races, if you're looking for a betting race in particular, I'd take a long look at the Rodeo Drive. These turf fillies and mares out in California, it's a pretty, there's no standout, but it's a solid group, and they tend to get big fields every single time. And, now stretching out to 1.25 miles, it always makes it interesting. So I think a lot of those horses out there, really are milers. So when you stretch out to 1.25 miles, you can get some big prices because people, they bet off the recent form, and they'll see a horse like Vanicola or the like, won 2 back, or Queen of the Sand won last time, but that 1.25 miles is a big difference from 1 mile, and you can get some form reversals that way. So if you're looking for a race that probably has the biggest potential for an upset, I think it'd be that Rodeo Drive.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still some, you still got to weed your way through that all stakes pick 4. I do think it was interesting that Hard Not to Like showed up out there.
Yes.
And then Graham Motion brought Photo Call down from Woodbine, and then stretches her out 1.25 miles. She took a lot of money a couple weeks ago and didn't really run that well.
Yeah, but she has had some very nice runs before that earlier this season, and she's one who I think could really appreciate coming to California because she's kind of a late running closer type, and I think she's been very compromised on more than one occasion, having run up in New York at Saratoga and at Belmont. So I'm sure she'll appreciate having a little bit more pace out here in California.
Well, it is Super Saturday 1, and then next week we'll have Super Saturday 2. We'll have the Frisette and the Champagne. We'll have the best older horses in training going in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. And then we'll also have the Santa Anita Sprint Championship. At least those 4 for sure we'll take a look at on this program. And then maybe 2 weeks from now we'll do a round table and early look at the Breeders' Cup as we'll kind of get focused in on that. So that's going to do it for another edition of Down to the Wire.